Chester Community Schools Board meeting to order. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everybody's present, so I don't need to do a roll call. Emergency additions and deletions. We have Nicole Screeton, Leslie Altemus, on there twice, her resignation, and then a new hire. Same with Rebecca Raymer, and we have the resignation of Dr. Rameau to add. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Any other additions or deletions?
I'll motion to approve.
Mr. Hensley, any motion? Have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Raymer, seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Hearing of patrons. Okay. At this time, we normally do our presentation, but I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Steve Darnell, who's going to be our interim superintendent. And come on up and have a seat. And hang on a second here.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. And I don't believe we have any recognition tonight, do we, Missy?
No.
And no financial report?
No.
Okay, so we'll move to the consent items, which is the minutes and the claims, regular, prepaid, and payroll.
Hey, Dave, for recognition before we move on, I'd just like to say, for the people who are losing, even the school corporation, Dr. Jamal, Mr. Markham, the Screetons, I see Mark Underwood's in there, just thanking everybody for their service, right, commitment to the community and the things that they, contributed to the school system, so, thank you.
So noted. Anybody else?
Dave, I'd like to thank the people that have remained and are carrying extra weight at this time. I know you guys are concerned and walking on eggshells and all of the above. Thank you very much for doing the best we can to make this right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, back to the consent items. We have the minute 6.1, the claim 6.2, regular claims, prepaid claims, payroll claims that were all in your packets. Entertain a motion to, hang on a second, we got grants here. We got $10,000 to MES from AWS Foundation for a sensory room. Missy, do you know what that acronym stands for?
Anthony Wayne Services.
Anthony Wayne Services.
Anthony Wayne Services donated the foundation for the sensory room, and we got a $42,500 grant to MES for dual language from the IDOE. And that there is no donations this month and no facilities rentals. Can I get a motion to approve the consent items?
I'll motion.
Mr. Raymer? Mr. Brubaker? All in favor? 7-0. Recommendations for approval. I think we're gonna do the employment from 7.11 all the way down to 7.11110. We're gonna separate Rebecca Raymer for the benefit of Mr. Raymer. I'd entertain a motion to approve the employment. It was in your packets. Mr. Brubaker,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Raymer. Any discussion, questions? All in favor? 7-0. Rebecca Raymer is a MES preschool teacher. Entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Mr. Hensley and Mr. Booker,
I'll second.
all in favor? Abstention? Okay, we got 6-0-1. ECA staff, 7.112 to 7.11211, which is ECA staff, coaches, volunteers, volleyball, assistant cross country, was all in your packets. Can I get a motion to approve the ECA staff?
I'll motion.
Mr. Raymer, second. Mr. Brubaker, any discussion? Comments, questions? All in favor? Opposed? 7-0. Resignations. We have 7.12 all the way down to 7.12. Oh, okay, well, actually, certified staff resignations. We have Sarah Emmert, Adrian Campus, Eric Screeton, Jeremy Markham, Rebecca Raymer, Nicole Screeton, Leslie Altimus, and Dr. Vermeau. And on the ECA staff, we have Chris Zolman. And we can do all the resignations as one motion. Mr. Brubaker,
I'll second.
Mr. Booker, second. All in favor, accept the resignations. You want to abstain? Okay. 7-0, or 6-0-1, I'm sorry. Dr. Lippy, if you would, please.
So last month, we received notification that a long and distinguished instructional staff member of ours is retiring, and that's Mark Underwood. And I'd like to just talk a little bit about some of his years of service. Mark and I go way back. We were actually in college together, and I just remember what a gentleman Mark was, even before he got into education. He was kind of the big man on campus at Huntington, and I had just transferred in from Ball State, nobody, and in the softball PE class, and he took me under his wing, just the nicest guy. And I told him that when I started here, I just will never forget what a gentleman he was to me. He didn't know me from Adam, but just treated me with a great deal of respect and welcomed me to Huntington College. So I've known Mark for well over 25 years as a teacher, as a coach. Mark preceded his dad over here in the science program. They both taught in the science department for years. Mark has, I believe, 29 years of service with Manchester schools. I believe it's 34 years overall. That might be a little bit off, but I believe it's 34 years overall. Mark is a professional in every sense of the word. He was the head girls basketball coach in the Manchester program. When I coached in Huntington, I remember those years. He had a great deal of success in the girls program, and most recently he coached our boys up until last year, coached the boys for about 4 years. Mark proved that he would make personal sacrifices for the benefit of the school and community and for his students. Mark maintained a positive and constructive relationship with students parents, teachers, and colleagues over the years of his service. Mark showed exceptional leadership qualities and the ability to deal with many personality types. Mark served the school well during his tenure. Mark demonstrated an ability to teach good sportsmanship and conduct. His teams always left positive image on themselves, their teammates, their families, and their school. Finally, Coach Underwood. Mr. Underwood, the instructor, is an upstanding man in the community who is full of integrity. He used positive reinforcement as his main motivation guide to assist young men and women in the classroom and on the court. Manchester Schools is indebted to the Underwood family and Mark in particular for all of their years of service. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Dr. Lippy. Textbook rental fees, is that you, Dr. Lippy?
It could be part of me, third of me. So obviously I have some other colleagues that aren't here tonight on the elementary end and intermediate end. Can't really speak on those, but I believe these are the junior, senior high school TBR. We kind of look at numbers going up and going down. I will just tell you that when we compiled this, most of our numbers are either the same or a little less, which is good because we did come in with new language arts textbooks. That's a big hit usually for us. New social studies books. We got a lot of input on those textbook adoptions, a lot of input from our teachers. We had some parents weigh in on that. I believe we were also looking at some new facts books. That's all part of the new graduation pathways. So we're really excited about those programs. You know, one thing that we'd already kind of been moving towards is digital text. That hasn't changed. If anything, this last year and a half has taught us, you know, we need to make sure that there's a digital component, and I believe you're going to see that all the way K through 12. In some cases, we did get a classroom text, a classroom set to go along with the digital text that teachers can use in the classroom. There were some textbooks where it almost made no sense not to get a book, and that would be in language arts. The price difference between a classroom set and handing a kid, every student, a textbook in language arts was negligible. We really felt like for that, especially with language arts and the weight that it carries with iLearn and school accountability, our language arts teachers really encouraged us to consider. So we're making sure that all kids will have a text in language arts. And again, the numbers that are coming out of TBR are really very comparable to what we've seen over the last few years.
Board, any questions for Dr. Lippy?
Dr. Lippy, did you share like cost per, so there's not a cost per grade?
So does that in your packet?
Yes.
So that's an example.
Okay.
Just to kind of give you an idea, like what a 7th grader TBR might. Now, there's some variables. You know, whether students taking band or choir, AP courses, a little bit higher there for some of those. And you can see down here, the Chromebook charges in there, the yearly rental for Chromebooks. Heartland, there's a Heartland charge, so if you're not in Heartland, you know, obviously that would be pulled up, that's $45. So you can kind of see, given a student's, it's not every possibility, it just kind of gives you a possible scenario for each grade level.
Mr. Miller, could you put up the MES textbook fee rentals on the screen, please?
Where was that?
Kind of scroll down and give the board an idea. This stuff is all in your packets, gentlemen.
It's in recommendation. There's one for each.
And Tony, could you put up the MIS one, please? Thank you. Okay, I guess we need a motion to approve the textbook rental fees.
I move to accept the textbook rental fees.
Motion by Mr. Shaw, second by Mr. Hensley. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? That's 7-0. Thank you, Dr. Lippy, for your help.
Yeah, thanks for your work on it too.
Approval for surety bonds for Darla Kane and ECA treasurers from July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. This is past practice. Entertain a motion to approve it. Mr. Brubaker? Mr. Raymer? Any questions? All in favor? 7-0. Okay. Reentry plan for MES 2021-22 school year. That's in your packets. Would you like it up on the screen for review?
Yes, please. Sure. Right there. I had a question on that. Is it okay to ask questions? at once?
Sure.
Okay. So the face coverings thing kind of contradicts itself, it seems like. And I'm perfectly great with the optional face covering policy, but then it says, and it goes on and says, if it's required by CDC, and that makes sense to all students and staff wear face masks because it's distance, blah, blah, blah. But then it goes on to saying face coverings will be required when staff and students are on the bus, transitioning between classes and hallways and while waiting in line. So is that gonna be required on top of making it optional, or it doesn't? I guess that's my question on that.
My understanding is if the CDC and the Wabash County Health Department or IDOH requires it, then that's what we will follow. Right now, to my knowledge, Dr. Lippy, if I'm wrong, you correct me, bus drivers and kids riding the bus have to wear masks.
Okay.
Once they're in the building, it becomes optional unless we're under one of those health organizations' orders.
So do we need to have that rewritten slightly? Because it says face coverings will be required when staff and students are on the bus, period. Because the transitioning between classes and hallways are only required with if the CDC dictates it. Correct?
Except for in the health area, according to this. So what I'd say, I'd take a look at this and say, the changes we made were basically, driven from the CDC or the governor, right? I mean, some of, what came out legislatively. So when they lift that, we had this conversation, when they lift that, it's just like with the field trips and other, everything else. I think if we don't have a legal requirement, then we could talk about that, but if we don't have a legal requirement, I'm a little confused why kids are the only ones wearing masks and people at school and stuff in the entire universe, to a certain degree, so.
It doesn't have, I'm not going down that road specifically. I'm just asking about the verbiage on the form making sense.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. If it's not law or regulation, then we revert back to existing policy is what we do. The resolution was basically put in place to match up with the changes, the legislative, legal changes and the ordinances that we needed to follow. Once that stuff's lifted, as far as I'm concerned, we revert right back to the same policy we had.
So basically our only policy this fall, unless the CDC changes, is the first sentence.
Mr. Darnell?
I haven't really had a chance to review your document, but I know the bus situation, since it's under the jurisdiction of federal, face coverings are required. In the hallways and the classrooms, that's really kind of a local school board decision as to what you want to do with that. As long as you have the social distancing in place, and I'm sure we can massage that and fix that. The intent is when it's required, and I think what you're saying is when it's required by federal law that, I mean, school districts, all school districts in the state of Indiana follow it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It just, the verbiage, the way that it's written is confusing to me, and that's why my question was there.
We have a meeting on the 27th. There will be a special meeting that we can take action on. If you would like, we can either make this a motion and put it to a vote, subject to the changes, or we can have Mr. Darnell work on rewriting it and approve it on the 27th. It's whatever the board wants to do.
To be clear to the community and to the parents and everybody else that's involved in this, I think it needs to be rewritten so that it's black and white and clear as to what, if this happens, this is the case. If not, this is the case. So, I would recommend that, just to make it as clear as possible to everybody.
Any other comment?
I'd agree. I mean, it's just a little, it is confusing to me when I read it.
I agree.
Okay.
It needs a little massage.
Well, the other part is, if we're gonna make mask optional in like the health area, then we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to put some clarification if we're gonna provide this mask or not.
Okay, so I don't normally do this. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion that we pull this from the agenda. If I can get a second, we'll take a vote and we'll bring this back on the 27th.
Can we just table it? Can we make a motion to table it? Is that
That's what he's saying.
basically?
Before you do that, though,
Yes.
who was all involved in putting this together? Do we know?
Dr. Lippy?
Okay, so
Admin team? Okay, I just wanted, that's.
Want me
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
Please.
real quick? Okay, so was it we met?
Early June, I think, was the last
Yeah.
time.
Okay, so it's a living document. It was, I don't believe, meant to be finalized at this stage. We knew the CDC was gonna come up with some changes, or we assumed there would be. I went to open this document because I wanted to share it with Mr. Darnell today, and it said it was in the owner's trash. So I'm not sure, Tony, that might mean it was in Teresa's trash, but I did make a copy. So we do have a copy. We just can't edit it right now. So, yeah, I agree. We should edit this. We should clean it up, given the latest information, which that's what we were going on, whatever it was a couple weeks ago, still in June. I think it was early second week of June. So, absolutely. And
Thank you.
a lot of the work's been done. MA Hire did take a look at it. And anybody that knows MA knows she doesn't just roll over. She was combing this thing pretty good. But at the time, we do have the latest information. I don't know what's gonna be like with the buses. Right now, they're holding out that we're gonna have to wear masks on the bus. We'll follow the law, whatever the law is. If we're given the grace in school not to wear masks, we're gonna take that grace. But certainly we'll respect anybody or embrace anybody that wants to wear masks. That's, we wanna make that happen to them if they feel safe that way.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the table to pull this from the agenda pending a rewrite. And Sue, this reentry plan is part of the ESSER 3.0 grant, correct?
You have to have
So
it.
we need to get this done by July 27th.
Yeah, I don't know if it was already submitted initially, we just have to make our updates.
Okay.
You have 30 days from approval of your ESSER 3, so I think you're within the window.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty comprehensive. Actually, it's just, that point of contention, it's gonna come up with the mask, so I mean,
Okay.
clarify.
One other question also for clarification, just while you're looking at it. Does the bus also mean athletic buses as well?
Yep.
So just a point of clarification again for that as well.
Bus is a bus is a bus.
Okay,
Thank you.
call for the vote to pull this from the agenda until it's rewritten. All in favor? 7-0. Okay.
Already.
Student and adult meal prices, Mrs. Landis.
Good evening. Okay, so rules and regulations again. So typically I'll be coming to you prior to this, probably in April, because there's something called a PLE, which is a paid lunch equity, and I'm not going into all the reasons because it's not in effect right now. But we would have to raise our lunch prices to meet those regulations. But the USDA has said that they will will be able to provide one breakfast and one lunch for every student in the corporation per day. Just one, sorry, high school boys and girls that like to have seconds. They will have to pay for those. So it'll be just exactly like last year. And we did see our numbers, and I don't have a percentage right off. Just, I know that we kept fixing more food, especially in the high school, and I know that MES and some of the others would say, you know, we have a lot more participation because of those free meals. And so students will need to be able, or will, if they want to purchase anything extra, or if they want to purchase something that's not a reimbursable lunch, and it's a really easy, we're offer versus serve, and that's enough. I'll be glad to have that conversation with you if you want to know. But it's really easy to get a reimbursable meal, even if you don't want everything that we have to have. And those rules have come back in effect, and I can talk about that in a little bit. So they would be able to purchase extra pizza, a drink, you know, chips at the high school, ice cream, whatever would be available that we have deemed appropriate for those particular age groups and according to regulations and smart snack rules. So free meals, but there's usually always a large but, that we, along with those rules and regulations for meals, adult meals must equal the reimbursement rate plus the commodity dollars that we get for each meal that's served. And so commodity dollars are only based on lunch, and those are the USDA foods that I receive money and I choose in January, February what I want to come in. Ground beef and various things. I can explain that all as well if you want to know. And which is a large part of our budget. I've actually sent some money to DoD Fresh for some fresh vegetables that we don't have to write a check for, per se. They're not free. There is a dollar amount to them, but we don't have to write a check for those items. And so we're going to be operating under the SSO, which is Summer Seamless Option this year, for a couple reasons. We're not allowed to operate under the Summer Food Service Program, which we have operated under since March of 2020. We're not going to revert back to prior COVID, because the Summer Seamless Option is basically the same thing, except that we get a larger reimbursement, which makes my budget happy. It makes me happy as well. And so that means since it's a larger reimbursement, and we have to make adult meals equal our reimbursement plus the commodity dollars, and the DOE was very nicely and did the math for me, so they were telling all this, if you're doing Summer Seamless Option, this is what you must charge for an adult. It is an increase of about $1. So some of our adult staff are going to probably balk at it a little bit, but honestly, I can't go to McDonald's and get $4.60 for lunch. And you can get quite a bit of lunch through us. And at McDonald's, I probably would get a sandwich and fries. Not the healthiest choice. So anyways, so I will need, and breakfast is the same. Breakfast also must meet those reimbursement rates. And it too went up about 75 cents. We don't have a lot of staff eating breakfast, a few, so it'll affect a very small population. So I ask for you to prove that. I really don't have any say in it, it's required, so. Back to the Summer Seamless Option, we will be seeing a return back to our old meal pattern. And that means we'll be having all our vegetable subgroups. I'll be doing sodiums and fats and calories appropriate to the age groups that the USDA has set. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it really works out that well. Every time I cannot meet the meal pattern, I must let the DOE my field consultant know so that I can receive a waiver for those items. They have to then report, and I wondered why, so I asked. They have to report that to the USDA. I'm hoping that by them doing so, if there's really a supply chain issue like there is now, because honestly, we're still in the same boat. Whatever comes in the back door is what we get. I can, just a couple weeks ago, I tried to get cereal in it. I had to choose, it was the 5th kind of cereal before I finally was able to get one. So, who knows, like chips and salsa, can't get chips. Finally came 3 weeks later, yeah, I can now, and so I don't know how that's all going to work, but we'll see. And just for your information, in the month of June, I submitted reimbursement, and we served over 20,000 meals through our summer meal program for the month of June.
Awesome.
So we're definitely meeting a need, I feel like meeting a need there.
Through all of the frustrations with the broken trucks or the truck that didn't even come, and
Yeah.
well done, well done.
Thank you. Well, just some contacts, and was able to, we now have even a better truck than we would have had in the beginning, and it's working out great. They supply a truck, it's Isuzu International out of Fort Wayne, and they supplied refrigerated trucks, well, at a fee, but they're really working with us to Fort Wayne Community Schools, and they're very supportive of this type of program, so there's intern support.
All the
with us.
volunteers and everything, just
Yeah.
been wonderful. Hey, a quick
Oh.
question, if I could ask real quick.
Yes.
So, this program is fantastic. It saves a ton of money per family, per student.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. And on top of that, we do receive a little bit extra on the side with it. Question is, could we use some of that extra that we get to offset the adult lunch a little bit, back down to where it was, $1 less?
No,
No, it doesn't work that way?
it doesn't work, because that money is considered taxpayer money, it's federal funds, it's coming all completely from the USDA, and there is very strict guidelines on what
Okay.
we may or may not use that for,
Okay.
so, I'm sorry, no.
I tried, teachers, I
Now, if
tried,
you want
just for,
to, from the general fund, you know, if somebody outside or whatever might, we could explore that avenue, I don't know the rules, you know, about that.
sure.
But it can't come from the school food service fund. I
All right,
also
thank
want to
you.
say, you're gonna see this in the newspaper because I spoke with Eric Christiansen, so just to let you know, I just want to give a huge, huge thank you to MPS Egg, who donated 7,000 boxes again to us this year, which saved the school lunch program or somebody, probably us, up to $14,000. So if I was to buy that, if I could even buy those on the market, and they're a great box. They work perfectly. We can just hand the gallon of milk with the 10 breakfasts and 10 lunches to the family instead of trying to sort bags and make sure they get everything they're supposed to have. It's just, here you go. Thank you for coming.
Could I ask a favor?
Sure.
Would you write, I don't know who your contact is, but would you write a thank you letter and bring it, or have it here on the meeting on the 27th so the board can sign it?
Okay.
And we'll send it to them? Yes, for
Okay, I
input.
sent them one, and I'll be happy to write another one, because I really, this is their second year partnering with us, and it's,
That's big.
I mean, it's a great thing for our community.
Board, can I get a motion to approve the student and adult meal prices? Mr. Brubaker,
So moved.
Mr. Raymer, any further discussion or questions?
2021, the entire school year, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
And
or
going
21, 22,
to
sorry.
June of 2022, which typically we then roll over into our summer meal program anyways, once school is out. But yes,
Right.
the entire school year.
Fantastic. Fantastic,
Becky,
sorry.
what's our FRL percentage projected? Do you have a
Honestly, I don't know.
projection?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because that's another whole piece of the puzzle that the IDOE has been waiting since March. And the last time I knew they're still waiting. I did see a message in my, or a newsletter in my inbox, so I haven't opened that from them. They send out a weekly newsletter. I'm waiting for guidance from the USDA on this whole free and reduced thing, because meals are free this year, so we don't really need a free and reduced application, because they're for meals. I mean, we found that out a little bit last year. When you tell a family that they need to sign up for this free and reduced meal application, they're like, but it's free. And they don't realize that E-rates and textbooks and all this stuff hinge on that.
Yeah, they're,
So At this point, we're not doing a free and reduced meal application. There is something out there called a textbook application that we need to explore a little bit, and I spoke with Tony Miller a little bit about that, because we just know that we're gonna have to come back out with something. And to me, a textbook application, if I was a parent, would make a whole lot more sense than a free and reduced meal application when we're free. But I do want textbook
Okay,
assistance,
so
so.
you've been thinking about covering that, because there's a lot of ties to that, right? And there's,
There is.
funding, so.
Yeah, so they've still not received guidance on it, and school starts for some people here in a couple weeks, so that's kind of where that stands, and
Okay, thank
we'll
you.
just keep working through that.
Any other further questions or discussion, board? All in favor? No opposition, 7-0 passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
The next one, we have a letter from Mr. Screeton that says that we don't have a meeting before the August trips, when actuality we do on the 27th. Whatever the board wants to do here. I did reach out to Dr. Lippy, supports these trips, as do I. We do have a policy in place that evidently wasn't followed because we don't have the applications for these trips. So, and I reached out to MA Hire under the current IDOH and county health. There's nothing preventing this.
So I think maybe what he was after here, Dave, was the lift of the resolution part that said absolutely no field trips. It's like, so I don't know if they were looking for a green light to submit the applications for the field trips prior to submitting the applications for the field trips, but again, it goes back to current policy, if
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Before you
So-
talked to me, that's what I thought. It was just giving approval for them to submit these requests,
Yeah, and
not
that's
in
fine.
place of the request. At least that's what
Yeah.
I thought was too.
Yeah, so, like I said, if they just fill out the forms, bring them to the 27th, get your, if we don't have an athletic director in place, get your signature and Mr. Darnell's signature and bring it to the board.
So these are all the only thing I'd ask MA would be like any type of out-of-state trip, or are these all in-state? Is it Indiana dunes or Michigan dunes, like Warren dunes? I don't know if that makes a real difference, but
Again, once the form's filled out, we'll have all that information, where it's to,
I think they're all in state.
huh?
They're all in state.
Yeah, and she did say that the IDOH has not issued any guidelines for August 21 as of this date. So I would just say, get the forms filled out and bring them on the 27th, and we'll go from there. Anybody have a problem with that?
well, linking that into, our math, does it say, so are they gonna wear a mask or not on the buses, I guess would be the one question I have on these field trips.
Oh,
Nah,
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
if
it's
they're
right
on
now
a
it's the
school
law.
bus.
Right now it's the law.
so,
We don't have
okay, just as
discretion.
long as that's clear with everyone,
Yeah.
And maybe they'll, maybe they change up after before August, I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully when the IDOH lists the
It's not
guidelines.
only legal, right, it's our insurance company, if we don't follow
Yeah.
what they do, we're also not covered by the insurance company, so if something does occur, then you have liability on top of that, so.
Okay, any other comments, questions on this? Okay, you gonna take care, Mr. Darnell, you gonna take care of getting the, well, Eric's last day's tomorrow, so I guess we'll leave it with Dr. Lippy to get a hold of the coaches, let them know.
Yeah, I know Jody Sarver's out west. Did you say you talked to him?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So, that brings us to the interim superintendent contract. You were all copied on it. He's here. I guess we need to make a motion to pay him.
And you want,
Motion to approve the contract, please.
I'll motion.
Mr. Raymer, Mr. Brubaker, second. Any discussion, further questions? Do you have anything you wanna say?
No. Just
Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, 7-0. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you, Board.
MCS budget consulting agreement, for the public, Mr. Markham has left. We're staring down the barrel of, getting the budget prepared, so we've hired a consultant to prepare our 21-22 school year budget. So, board, you've seen copies of the contract. I'd entertain a motion to approve the budget consulting agreement.
All motion.
Mr. Hensley,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Booker. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? 7-0, approved. Okay, this next one is a little bit confusing, but we've already sent the paperwork to make Darla Kane and Fatima Hoffer the signatories on our Hoosier Fund. Since Dr. Ramel and Jeremy no longer work here, we just need the board to approve it.
So moved.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Mr. Booker, motion, Mr. Brubaker seconded. All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor? Okay,
Well, Dave and I would add that this allows them basically to work with our consultant as well.
exactly. Exactly. Now we're to discussion information, Heartland update. In the spirit of time, I'm gonna keep it short tonight. We've received some drawings from the architect. Plans are being reviewed. We got the first bill from the architect, and we're looking at possibly doing some soil borings next month on that. So, Mr. Hensley, legislative update?
Well, just had a discussion with Mark, who's, still facing, as we look at capacity, demand and capacity here, and we look at our facilities and stuff, we still face, really a little bit of overcapacity, so we've got, it'll be interesting how the legislation to this point, charter schools and universities, public universities can kind of snap up those assets. So I think it'd be prudent to look at our community as a whole and what type of learning opportunities could occur, kind of out at MAS if we do shift things around a little bit, within the schools. So, quite a few, nothing's changed in the courts on transgender. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much, been reaffirmed, several times, as far as that goes. So no news there. I think, again, as we look at, the teacher pay, that's kind of a big topic. So that's a challenge for us as a corporation, again, to match that. We should, I would hope we would be, very, very competitive at the highest level. What do we have in administration and teachers as far as that goes. So we'll have a meeting here regionally on the legislative kickoff, so it'll be interesting to see what the highlights that they want to work on. As far as the region, there is some good work going on as far as 30, getting funding to make that, to basically, increase the traffic flow through there, which will help us all. But I'm still one, as far as that goes, how does that affect us? I still say, that's gonna attract more business in the area, especially in orthopedics, and we're really at, North Manchester is an underutilized asset, in the county, and that's how I'm looking at it. So if we can, as far as the educational institutions, the businesses, I think I got a good feeling things are starting to come together, within the community and the county. So that's a little brief legislative update.
Okay. CARES Act 3.0 modifications, that was explained to us that this is a flowing document, and there was a error last month. I want to call to the board's attention. If you'd scroll down, $40,000 for professional development. for 3 years. SEL, right there. Okay, that says that was for professional development. In the last meeting, I don't remember who it was, somebody explained that that's actually a K-12 curriculum from an outside vendor. Is that correct? Okay. Does the board want to take any action on modifying this?
What, maybe this is not the correct time to ask, but what is in that curriculum?
I am not aware of what's in the curriculum. Normally,
Go ahead.
if we were doing something like this, it would be, there would be a presentation to the board and how the,
Maybe I should have directed that more to
yeah.
maybe Mrs. J, you can handle that.
That was just an allotted amount of money. We decided, since we were hiring a counselor that has an expertise in SEL, that we wouldn't make any decisions on a curriculum. We explored 4 or 5 different options. I think that is probably on the high end, like really high end. I don't think any curriculum that I've seen that seemed viable to me was more than about 7,000. So I think we probably have a little room per year, have some room to play with there, but we have not chosen one yet. And we want to get this person in place and use their expertise and then make the right decision. We would do a presentation at that time then when we have a potential curriculum chosen. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I didn't, like I
Okay.
say, it was presented as curriculum, and then
Right,
without
and
knowing
then-
what this curriculum was, I didn't know what we were signing on for. So-
Yeah, and I don't,
But
curriculum is maybe not the right word either. It's more of a program, I would say than a curriculum, but they do align it vertically, so I guess that's where we kind of talk about it as curriculum, but yeah, it's not, nothing has been chosen yet. We've just explored options.
Okay, so these are all the CARES Act 3.0 is money we have to spend and then get reimbursed, right?
Correct,
So nobody's gonna be spending any money on this until it comes to the board, is that correct?
that's true.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, and the second one was I forwarded, on June 29th, Mr. Markham had sent out a list to all the admins and the grade level chairs about increasing the 20% for learning loss in the classrooms. Some people weren't under contract and that, but Mr. Baldwin did respond on June 29th, and I forwarded this email again to the board if you want to open your phones and look at it. He's got almost $41,000 in needs for his building, 120 desks per grade level, for a grand total of $27,000. Cost of whiteboards would be dependent upon how many would need replaced, but he knows of at least 3. And those are $338, which comes up to $1,000. 26 small whiteboards, 24 by 36, which comes up to around $2,500. 8 teachers requested those. That's around $2,000. 15-watt classrooms plus. Sue, what is SPED?
Special education.
Okay, special education and reading. That's $5,500. He's got 4 sets of something at $20 a piece, that's $80. A new laminator from the school specialty currently costs around $1,800. A charging port for each classroom is $26 a unit. That'd be around $400. The total cost is, like I said, $40,481.69. I think we need to put this in the strategic plan. Or not the strategic plan, I'm sorry, in the CARES Act 3.0.
Well, we've got floated 270, right?
Yeah, we got 270 floating, and I think Sue just made us aware that that one right there is pretty fat.
Can I, just for some clarity, the 270 floating, everything's been submitted for CARES 3.0, correct?
Minus,
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
and then we have a chance to amend it, and when's the deadline to amend 3.0?
That's a very fluid document, so you can amend multiple times as your costs change and your needs change. So, what, 2024, I think, so we're good.
Which means we can add the additional 270,000 that we haven't allocated currently, correct?
Anytime you amend, then it has to go through approval for the DOE.
Right.
There's a process there.
Right.
So there's a small window of time that takes to have that happen.
So ultimately, what I'm not comfortable adding to this, adding expense to 3.0 until it were to go through a vetting process with either the interim superintendent or the permanent superintendent in conjunction with the admin team. My thought is great. I'm sure Mr. Baldwin in MIS needs everything he stated, but to make a decision, I'm not sure what other principals or other administrators had the same or I know you said you sent them an email requesting.
Jeremy Markham sent the email.
But without knowing the needs of others, I'm not comfortable slotting Mr. Baldwin's request into 3.0.
Well, I'm not comfortable approving a curriculum or whatever that is without even knowing what it is. And that's why I voted against the SEL coordinator or counselor or whatever we're kind of calling that. So whatever, Steve said here, I'm all for involving those guys in the decision. But one thing is in education is when you can finally get the voice of the administration, get the voice of the actual people in the classroom that are actually doing the teaching, and you want to talk about closing the learning gap, I think to me that's more valuable information than that's more valuable information coming from those folks than anything to me. So, but I see your point, Rick.
Yeah.
I mean,
I do want to make a couple clarifications. One, this list was compiled by discussions with Tommy's staff in his own walkthroughs, and these items are all portable. They could come with us in any future move between buildings. And Jeremy Markham sent this to the admins and the grade level chairs in all three buildings. Due to contractual, some people not being under contract. John, do you want to speak on this for the high school? I mean, Amy's not here, so I don't want to speak for her, but I did have a conversation with her, and that was her response to me, was the fact that her people weren't under contract, so she hadn't contacted them yet. Tommy did.
So we sent out the email to our department heads, and I received one return, and I personally went through and audited the classrooms. And here's the thing about it. I value a conversation with Tommy and Amy so that we can kind of be playing on an even playing field. So desks that I may think are okay, Tommy may be replacing. I just want to make sure that we're comparable, because he may be pushing desks out the door that are better some of the desks that I'm keeping, and my teachers, for rightfully so, would be like, why didn't my desks are not as good as So I value that. I mean, I think we could come back and get those in pretty good order. And maybe he's got a couple classrooms that need to go, and he may have that prioritized, and he and I have it not discussed. And I would say if he's got high needs, I think we should proceed with the high needs. I can tell you from my audit, walking through the junior high and walking through the high school, I really saw one classroom that needed them right now, a classroom desk. So I would propose, in good order, a discussion of a classroom. But now it's always a good idea to be proactive and get on a schedule so that not all the desks go at one time. I will tell you that if you look at these desks, it looks like they're all in about the same shape. I wouldn't say outstanding, but I'd say really good. I mean, I think they're in really good shape, but if they all go at once, right, that's not good. So we were fortunate, the college donated some desks a few years ago. I don't know if you remember this, Rick, when you guys were clearing that warehouse, that was a big pole barn that I think you guys are using as your, right? And so we took some debt, they called us and were like, yeah, we'll take some debt, and they were in really good shape. We've got those in classrooms. But we have not purchased any more desks since then. So, we take, we reach out when we can but I would say for us, and I try to be responsible, and I'm sure Tommy is too, I wouldn't say I want more than 2, just being responsible, classroom sets. And then what we would do is we'd go pick out the worst ones in the school and retire those, and then maybe the better ones just put in storage so that we've got some backups as desks go back. So, we've tried to do a pretty good job of maintaining the place, so I wouldn't come to you and say, I've got gigantic needs. But I'm listening to my teachers too, and I just haven't had it. Now, we haven't been in session, guys. They've been on summer break. So I might hear more as we get closer to start of school.
And you're speaking about your building.
I'm talking about my building. I can't speak for any.
Okay. So I'd just like to add, Tommy went into some explanations here. Says new desks and possibly some new chairs for all grades, particularly 4th and 6th. 6th grade suggested sometime a desk that easily maneuvers in and out of groups, lightweight and portable. Most of the chairs seem fine, but some teachers are moving away from flexible seating options. We need to check whiteboards. Many whiteboards were just old chalkboards covered with film. Teachers with those type of boards have advocated for new legitimate whiteboards, as those with the film leave a residue behind and do not erase well. Small whiteboards would be installed on either side of the pro board. Some classrooms have these items, some do not. I would advocate that all classrooms have these boards installed. Standing workstations for teachers. This was put on CARES Act 2.0 and 3.0, and many teachers need a standing workstation for the front of their rooms that they can work from during class, since they do not sit and teach from their desk. Dry erase pockets, I have no clue what that is, but something about putting sheets in the pouch and then they use markers, and this could create less copying if 4 classes can use the same worksheet. New laminator, I don't have a link for this, but our current laminator is a fire hazard and it's extremely old. We don't have many outlets out here, and some of our additional power strips to charge devices in the classroom are being sought, 1 or 2 per classroom. With the capability to have them mounted to the wall would be nice. I'm not sure the fire card in regard to that. And this was a list compiled by my discussions with staff and my own walkthroughs, so.
Dr. Lippy, I agree with you that I believe that there needs to be some collaboration, or some put heads together, a couple of heads together, and wait till the teachers get back and really hash this out to get all of the schools involved.
And Tony, I really want his input on whiteboards too. I mean, he kind of helped. But if I see a whiteboard and I think it's bad, I mean, I don't know that I'd be the expert. And so I'd really lean on these guys to kind of help direct that, whether it needs to be replaced.
So there's a couple things here. Number one, so if we're gonna buy, like a volume discount, if I'm buying 100 desks versus 200 versus 300, so you really need the needs of all 3 schools. But like over a year ago, we talked about this, like the teacher, I'm hearing some recurring themes here. The technology in the room, they wanted a common layout, right? Is there any way that we can get a group and come up with a design like that of what I teach at multiple universities. Everyone at Purdue University that I walk into, that setup is exactly the same. It's the connections are there and stuff like that in the classroom. So if we're gonna spend money, I would appreciate if somebody would look at, what's standard versus that. But I think the other point would be, if we're gonna spend $41,000 on Tommy, I would think the other people at the school are all of a sudden gonna have, some wishes, and I'll be looking at volume discounts and that before I order. But anything critical, like if he says, this is a safety issue, I think in this corporation, right, that immediately gets addressed, in some manner, so.
Also, Dr. Lippy, I was your comment on doing it in stages, like not buying them all at once. I I totally agree with you if we were paying that out of our own pocket. But this is a one-time opportunity where we get the chance to grab them all. So I totally agree and on the separation, but this is a chance that we can,
You aren't paying for it out of your pocket, Robert.
we get reimbursed.
Yeah, no. We're all
Well,
paying for it.
okay, I hear you on that.
You gotta have the money to buy it first.
Just to be clear, I made this
And
a
you're paying more.
discussion item because I was made aware of it. We're getting ready to spend $1.7 million on a whole lot of stuff. And let's face it, the teachers are the ones in front of the kids, and they said it had to be 20%. And I'm just gonna end this conversation with this unless somebody else has something to say. There's no rule that says we can't spend 40% on learning loss. The people in front of our kids need the support each and every day, and it's 1.7 million. This is a once in a lifetime shot to support our people. That's where I'm at with it.
Well, that's a lot of money, and plus, you know, you have to look at the other aspect of this. We're splitting it in 3 years in equal buckets, where, to me, you know, if it's me looking at this, I'm holding on to as much money as I can, as long as I can. Unless
You
it's
can't hold on to any of
some
it.
type of necessity. I mean, we gotta remember, you know, I don't do, you know, hopefully we increase, hopefully we get kids back. But I mean, there's been that trend, you know, that demand is basically decreasing. So, you know, I see some things with this whole funding opportunity that's a little weird, you know, or what I'd be accustomed to. And I don't know if that, you know, Steve, does that have to be an equal amount for over the 3 years?
It could be all at once, or you can save it to the end. However you choose to spend it.
Yeah, I mean, there's school districts that are fixing HVAC units, they're fixing boilers. I mean,
Adding wings,
Yeah.
buildings.
yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and that's the other thing I wanted to bring up, thank you. There's a lot, you know, I guess we need to send some folks back to the drawing board a little bit, because a lot of this CARES Act stuff and the stuff in the strategic plan are commingled. Let's figure it out. So, any other comments on the CARES Act? Okay, hearing of patrons?
Wait, I'm sorry, where are we leaving this at? Are we just, where are we leaving, leaving this until?
Nobody made the motion to do anything.
No,
so-
until, and, I mean, like with a game plan of some sort, waiting for the teachers and the admin to get back together and get this right on all buildings?
Well, and like you said, you know, there's redundancy within the strategic plan, so we, you know, that's, to me, that strategic plan's still a sense of urgency, right? To get that thing finished up, then you know what's in budget or operations versus, you know, how we're gonna pay for things, so. So with that thing, we made no changes unless you wanna make a motion to change it or add something.
No, not to 3, we had talked about all the stuff that Mr. Baldwin brought up, and then Dr. Libby brought up that he hadn't had a chance to talk to everybody quite yet, and obviously Amy hasn't either, so we're just gonna table it until they get together and talk to him, right?
Like I said, it was a discussion item, it wasn't an action item.
Okay. Thanks.
Hearing of patrons? Superintendent comments?
I just want to say thank you for hiring myself through administrator assistance. So I look forward to working with Manchester Community Schools. And I want to say publicly, we live in Huntington, my wife and I live in Huntington County, and I tell you, we've always kind of looked to Manchester as really a great place to raise kids. And I think you've got a lot of good things going on here. So I'm excited personally to be a part of it. You know, as a school board, I mean, you've got some big decisions that you're making and have made, and things that are coming up. But it's been a tough year for everyone in education, and I know, I think Manchester, talking with people I've been connected with today, I mean, getting back to some type of normal behavior will be great for kids and great for teachers. So I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of Manchester Community Schools.
Okay, school board comments?
Well, I think we've said a few thank yous with the amount of resignations and retirements, I can't go through them all, but the people I work most closely with, Dr. Grimeau and Jeremy, wanted to thank them for this, the work they've done and their time in the central office.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanna say, you know, whatever the perception, MCS, we've got a lot of great things going on, right? We've got a real bright future. I think, you know, as you look at some of the things financially, get it on sound feet. We're looking at ways, even in this CARES Act money to build a rainy day fund, basically, taking different things on that. You guys have done an excellent job, hard year or not, complete STEM certification. We've got soccer rolling, the technical offering, get more businesses to look at the area, our community especially, in the northern part of the county. People are gonna start noticing those types of things, and we're right in a good position. I've noticed, like housing, in the community, that's kinda out there, but there's people out there, I kinda like what, like Ian Poston's doing with housing. So as these elements come together, that's how we're gonna grow our population, that's how we're gonna grow our students back. If that's the direction we're gonna take, which I would assume everybody wants to take that, but I think there's, people have left and people are gonna come in, not just welcome those people in the community. We never wanna lose anyone, right, in the community regardless, because that's families, that's children, that's people in the school, etc. So I think that, there's a lot of very positive things going on in the school corporation.
One more, Dr. Darnell, just save people a little Google time. Can you give us a little back? There's a lot of invested people in this community, in the school system. Just a little background of your experience and would be great.
Sure. I graduated from high school, Marion High School, went on to Ball State University, got my business education license, teaching license, former business teacher, taught CTE for many years, then went to work for the Department of Education in the state of Indiana, so as curriculum specialist, worked on state plans for career and technical education, came back to the local level, got my superintendent's license, been a superintendent for the past 11 years. Most recently, I retired from Southern Wells Community Schools in August. Took a few months off just to kind of catch my breath, and then started working with administrator assistants to be an interim superintendent. So, I kind of, in a nutshell, that's kind of my background. So.
Anybody else? Okay. Executive session, July 27th at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going to start interviewing candidates for the permanent superintendent. We're receiving resumes for the business manager position. Our next meeting will be a special meeting, a full board meeting. Executive session is just the board. The next regular meeting will be July 27th. That will be advertised as a special meeting because we will have to have some action that we take. And on a personal note, I'd just like to address the current situation. People come and go in corporations every day. We thank them for what they did while they were here and wish them well. But at the end of the day, all our buildings are standing. Our buildings are full of great people. This is a great community to live in. And I believe with all my heart that we're gonna hire 3 great new people. Well, we hired a bunch of people tonight, and Manchester Community Schools is gonna be bigger and stronger than we ever were before. And to reiterate somebody's comment at the beginning of the meeting, I don't remember who it was, the central office staff has stepped, and Dr. Lippy have stepped up immensely in the last couple of weeks, and I'd like to personally thank them for that too. So, I would entertain a motion to adjourn unless there's any other comments. Mr. Brubaker?
Second.
Mr. Booker, all in favor of adjourn? Board, don't run off, you got documents to sign.